You know, I can believe that I can be both humorous and logical and sensible at the same time. Have a short little discussion about what defines douchebag photography. I'm certainly not bemoaning technology, and I've got more than a few point-and-shoots, and I had the Sony A7 for a while, and returned it, saw its enormous limitations, which I pretty much knew ahead of time, but you know, they're a lot more extensive than even I thought. Then, you know, really thinking about, you know, the true hardcore philosophy of what is photography, and you know, this is not to sound snooty at all, but you know, what actually defines the actual term itself? Let's talk about connotation versus denotation. Actually, as a field theorist and someone who translates ancient Greek and Prakrit texts, I translate Plotinus, Numinus, Albinus, Demasius, and I translate ancient Pali texts, and you know, I'm a field theorist, and the one thing that's really lacking is proper context and people that give descriptions of things rather than explanations. So what is a true connotation versus what's a genuine denotation of genuine photography? Obviously everybody's got a camera on their iPhone or their Android now, and I certainly would rather whip out the old iPhone if I'm going to take a picture of something to sell on eBay. I mean, it's nice and fast, and I'll be the last person to bemoan technology, but it harkens back to an old Star Trek episode. There's a couple and a few shows like that where a really advanced race developed a computer that would basically make them food every day, and it would create their clothing, and they were very intelligent, and what happened is, as the years waned on, that they became so stupid. They relied on everything like a baby. They basically de-evolved intellectually because they didn't have to worry about doing anything. Everything was done for them. No thought is put into anything, and all they did was exist. You know, went around screwing each other like a bunch of you know, base animals. So what defines photography? Well, what's the denotation of photography? It's photographia, which literally means to draw light. But it also means more than that. The term graphia, like in Aristotle's Polemics 1336 B15, speaks of stitching or embroidery, stitching something together. It also means specifically to paint or to draw out. A true professional photographer, or even in the term in Russian, fotograficheskovo, denotes, you know, the drawing of light, the actual the creation of an artifice of light. So what does that separate out from today's photographers? They're using mirrorless cameras, or even I have a few point and shoots, and I obviously use my iPhone camera, and nobody's going to decry the fact that an expensive DSLR left at home is useless compared to, you know, a camera that you actually have in your pocket. You know, when the time comes to get the photograph, you can certainly edit it later to a certain degree, but what has really changed other than the technological medium that has improved? I mean, certainly the technology has improved to increase the technological ability to get great photographs, but what's going on now is not photographia. It's to use the Greek, you know, for photographia. It's a phototselave, which means to capture light, to gather it. You're just throwing out a trap out there, just like some idiots, you know, have their cameras on continuous high. You got to do that for sports photography, but you know, they're shooting the hell out of everything, and you know, they kind of work off the premise that, well, it's good enough, or they also work off the premise that, well, I'll take a crap load of shots and there'll be a small handful in there that'll be decent. They kind of work off the blind squirrel philosophy of photography that you know, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then. It's kind of like the old premise that a broken watch is right twice a day, and that's certainly the case. I mean, like, to define douchebag photography, you know, cell phones and piece of crap mirrorless cameras. You know, yes, a cell phone can capture something, which is better than nothing at all. I mean, I've always got it in my pocket. It's useful. You know, it's the same premise that we've got now. Everything is a disposable society that we don't think about anything. Everything is just fast and down and dirty. I mean, why buy, you know, a fine Mont Blanc pen or a nice carandache made in Switzerland when you could buy a frickin' Bic made by slave labor in China. You know, the technological advancements. Of course, I love this little Sony point and shoot. I mean, it's an advanced little camera with an OLED viewfinder. However, it costs a fortune. Actually, this camera costs as much as a refurb Nikon D7100. So I certainly can't compare it to an equally priced DSLR. I mean, the D7100 will, you know, just smoke the living crap out of this Sony point and shoot. I mean, I love it to death, and I give it a high rating. But I put it in place for what it is. I mean, it's a one-trick pony. It's nice and compact, but you don't expect me to throw a lens on the front of this damn thing or a speed light on top of it, do you? Because I certainly can't. No, and it's certainly not a mirrorless camera either. I mean, photography used to be off limits. It was a trade and a craft where genuine skills were involved. Now it's just a cheap capture mechanism where no brain work is involved. You know, obviously the camera you have with you, like I said, is better than an expensive DSLR that you've left at home sitting on your end table. The real religion, and here's the secret of the idiots that think, and it's their hubris that's the worst. If you like mirrorless, that's fine. If you want to be a lazy D-bag and, you know, click away on your mirrorless, there are a few. It has nothing to do with the mirror or not mirror being in the camera, okay? It has nothing to do with, so, well, what's the disadvantage of mirrorless versus a reflex DSLR? It has nothing to do with the mirror itself. To a very small degree, obviously there's a little shake involved in a DSLR when the mirror is flicking up and back, but it has nothing to do with that. It's a one-trick pony. The religion and the secret of point-and-shoot users and those who just go around with the camera, and that's fine, you know, they're not interested in being photographers. But don't call yourself a photographer walking around with a point-and-shoot or the fact that you got a Samsung or an iPhone in your pocket. Well, I take a lot of photographs and I post them on Facebook. I'm a photographer. Well, no, you're not. That's Foto-Síλληψη. That's the capture of light. That's not the fotografia. It's a huge difference when we're talking about fotografia and Foto-Síλληψη. It's in the Greek. Actually, I kind of created that term, Foto-Síλληψη. I mean, just literally the capture of lights. It's not the drawing or the stitching together, the embroidery of a fine compositional photograph where there is light manipulation or actual thought involved. But the real motto, the religion behind point-and-shoot and mirrorless photography is two words. It's good enough. It's valid. It's at the same time, it is both valid and insanely stupid. This is their premise. Well, it's all I need. It's good enough. A mirrorless does. This is the thing you'll actually hear from them. They'll either say this out in the open, or if they know it's it's really a bad slang for what it is they're doing, which is fine. If that's all they want to do, just admit it. But don't pop in with this hubris that you can do as much with a mirrorless as I can with a DSLR. I mean, you take your DSLR, you take your mirrorless, and I'll bring my DSLR to any shoot you want, and I'll just smoke your ass. I mean, I'll burn rubber past you and run around in circles. I don't care how good you think you are with your mirrorless camera. And the notion that they don't weigh as much, well, yeah, the camera does. Why don't you throw a speed light and a big lens on your friggin' mirrorless and tell me once again how small or how lightweight your damn mirrorless camera is. Give me a break with that BS. It's BS. But the motto of this photography is that it's good enough. It's valid and stupid at the same time. If that's what you want, that's fine. Hey, it's good enough. You know, I just point. You know, I got great matrix metering. It's got phase detection. It's good enough. It's good enough. It's good enough. That's the religion. That's the motto of mirrorless and point-and-shoot cameras. Of course, they can give a DSLR to any sort of douchebag, and of course they'll, stick it in pussy mode, and start firing away. Obviously, a DSLR depends on whose hands it in. No one's going to argue that fact. But the most important thing in your shot that you can't see but is palpable, that you can feel, is the thought behind it, the thought and the composition and the light manipulation. The mirrorless people and the point-and-shoot people and it's okay, if that's all you want to do is point-and-shoot and mirrorless, hey, more power to you. Of course, there's theme song, I think, is that Edie Brickell song, that how's it go? Shove me in the shallow waters before I get too deep. I don't want to know all the crazy crap this camera can do. My life's too complicated. And that's valid. You know, everybody's life is busy. We're all trying to friggin' pay the bills. Everybody's laboring hard so they can spend their money to buy labor-saving devices, which is true cosmic justice if ever you've heard it. But it's only actually gotten easier to take technically accurate shots. I mean, back in the day, it was obviously a huge pain in the crotch to take a decent shot, you know, expose it properly, and then things have gotten easier. Things are getting easier, you develop a market. I mean, Sony and the rest of these people, they made it easy. They made photography accessible so they can sell more crap like this. I love this camera, but it's a piece of crap developed for people that are too stupid to learn how to do this, or they don't have the time to learn how to use this. But now it's not just that. It's perfectly valid that they use this and they want something really simple. But now they're claiming this, if it were just a point and shoot, or if this was a mirrorless, well, this is just as good as this is. And that's just total BS. I mean, you take your mirrorless, like I said, I'll bring my DSLR, and I will just smoke and roast your ass. I mean, I'll just grill your ass right over the fire. I mean, so don't even try to pull that crap off. You know, that your motto is good enough, whether you admit it. A lot of them will admit it. They'll say, what's good enough? You know, it's all I need. And that is valid. You know, but mirrorless and the point and shooters, I call them POS, because that's how I always think of point and shoot. And I've got a few point and shoots, so... You know, these people are getting arrogant now. It's like an idiot that claims white bread is just as good as a handmade artisan loaf of bread. You know, they've been eating white. It's good enough. You know, I toast it, I can put jam on it. It's like you're claiming that piece of white bread, the Wonder Bread, is good as the artisan loaf down at, you know, Joe's Bakery that's been in business for 150 years. Yeah, sure it is. You know, it's bread. You know, don't even try to argue that crap with me. Mirrorless cameras use contrast detection and autofocus system, which is a lot slower than the faster phase detection of the autofocus systems on DSLRs. And just the list goes on and on. There's no weight advantage to a mirrorless camera. By the way, heavy cameras are more stable on shots. And there's certainly no lighter in weight once you throw a large lens and a frigging speed light on top of them. So don't argue this BS that mirrorless is some sort of magical replacement for DSLRs. I mean, that nonsense is ridiculous. I actually took this shot today. I was actually planning on making this video, and I saw this guy. I was taking macro shots for the DSLR, and of course this idiot's just taking them with his iPhone. Of course, I have my iPhone in my pocket, and you know, this really is what defines douchebag photography. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I've taken shots like this before. I'm not packing my DSLR around with me everywhere. But that's everything's become, well, I got a camera, I'm a professional photographer. No, you're not. You're just a douchebag. You know, I can stick a DSLR in the hands of a moron. Kind of represented here. It doesn't mean you're a good photographer. By the way, I thought I'd show you this one and ask, thought you might find that funny. You might want to freeze it right there. Take a look. I do have a sense of humor. But what is the difference? Photografia, the drawing, the actual painting of light, the stitching together, as Aristotle denotes the term graphia. Photografia, or in Russian, fotografichеского. What these people are doing is Фотоцелавие. It's the capture of light. Click, click. Okay, there's something neat. I'm going to show this to my friends on Facebook. That is so cool. Okay, click. Oh, there's a picture of Jill. She's naked. She's showing us her tits. Click. Oh my God, come on. Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's Billy barfing in the sink. Click. I'm going to share that. I'm going to Instagram. That's not photography. Connotation, one thing. Denotation, another. This, folks, is what defines Φωτο-Σύλληψη versus photografia. And this, folks, is what douchebag photography is. And don't ever tell me you can do as much with your mirrorless as I can with my DSLR, because I will just smoke your ass with my DSLR. You bring your mirrorless, okay? It ain't gonna happen, okay? Catch you later.